All right, we may as well get started here. So I'll just kind of do my admin stuff here first. I'll just go over the talking points that I had here, and then I'll open the floor for questions. So bear with me for a couple of seconds. I'll start with term papers. Jordan has almost completed his half of the marking. So I am the holdup. I apologize. I had some personal stuff that I had to take care of last week, unfortunately. And so anyways, I'm behind where I wanted to be. I still maintain my promise. You will have your mark before you write your exam. The absolute latest that I would see this dragging out is the end of next weekend. I hope to be done before then, but that'll be the absolute latest. So by the time next Monday morning rolls around, you'll have your marks for your term papers. I'll give you a chance to review them and give you an idea of what kind of marks you've got going into the final exam. So in general, many people, assuming that you wrote the midterm and that you handed in a term paper, the marks are excellent. We will release all of the term paper marks at once. I've seen some good ones, I've seen some bad ones, and I suspect for the most part, people handing them in would know the difference, but I'm always available to discuss those once I release them. So I will answer any inquiries about them, and we'll go from there. So there will be comments. So before you have questions with something like that, review the comments that and the feedback that we leave, and as well as the rubric, which will tell you where marks were deducted, if they in fact were. Okay, so that's it. That's my news for term papers. And the only other thing to talk about is the exam. So the exam is in 10 days from now on Thursday, the 16th at 7 p.m. Don't take my word for it. Check your exam schedule. Yeah, don't ever let me lead you astray, but I did check on that. If you are writing it online, then you will have a specific schedule that will be agreed with the examinee people. So make sure you know when you're writing, okay? The next thing I want to say about that is everyone was given an opportunity to choose a location. I've got a pending question in my email inbox that I will respond to, but the question was, I've chosen online, but my understanding is that that's supposed to be for people that are not within 200 kilometers of the locations. That went to the wayside. That was the original way that the school is conducting that. But as of now, anyone who wanted to could choose online. What you're not going to get a lot of sympathy from me is in changing locations. So if you failed to make a choice and approximately half of the class did not make a choice, then you're expected to show up in Peterborough. Do not show up in Oshawa expecting that you're going to be able to write there. If you failed to make a choice, you are in Peterborough. So I will always keep a couple spares, but I do not want to get into the situation where I don't have enough exam papers for the number of people that think they want to write there. And then you're in a crappy situation where you're missing out on your exam because you're an hour away from Peterborough and you can't make it there in time. So please review what you chose and go there. If you did not choose a location, then you are expected to be in Peterborough. The details on the exam itself. The exam is 3 hours long. It is marked out of 180 marks, which is not a coincidence. That's 1 mark per minute. So you're going to have 100 multiple choice questions. Do not spend more than 100 minutes on them, and hopefully substantially less, so that you can have longer for the short answer portion. So staying with the first part, it's going to be a combination of multiple choice and true false. So it's from a random pool. That pool contains a small amount of stuff from chapters 1 to 5, but is primarily like 80% or more, driven from chapters 6 through 10. So you've already written an exam on exams, on chapters 1 through 5. So you should be in pretty good shape there. I would focus on 6 to 10, but I would also at least skim through 1 to 5 and make sure that you're refreshed on that content. So again, 100 questions, 80% plus are likely to come from, because it's from a pool, are likely to come from the chapters 6 through 10. Some true false, and mostly multiple choice. Then the other part, so that's 100 marks. The other 80 marks are 8 10-mark questions, and those are short answer questions, very similar to what you've done in the past. There won't be any additional questions. You won't be choosing 8 of 10 or anything like that. It'll be just 8 questions randomly chosen for you, and you're more than welcome and in fact encouraged to answer in point form. It makes it easier for us to read it, mark it, understand what you're saying. You're welcome to use full sentences and everything, but please use paragraphs. Don't give us a whole run-on sentence or a whole block of text. It's very hard to read and decipher, and you're likely to get less credit than you would if you either used point form or if you spaced it out. So you use paragraphs. The expectation is typically going to be about 5 good points to get 10 marks. If the question says list 6, then you need to list 6. If it says list 3, then all you need is 3. If it says describe, spend some time, list and then describe things. So make sure you can only get half the marks by giving me let's say it says describe 5 items that blah, blah, blah. If you just list those 5 items, then you can get, if you're accurate, you can get 5 out of 10. We need that description as well. So I think that's all that I wanted to tell you about the, one more thing. You do have the use of a cheat sheet. I'm sure there's a better term for it. I call it a cheat sheet. It's an 8.5 by 11, so a standard letter size piece of paper. It can be both sides. It can be written or printed. If you've got the eyesight and you want to use a 6 font and cram a whole bunch of information there, feel free. Do whatever you want. I don't care. Yes, the cheat sheet will work for the online exam. The exams are identical. Everything is, and I've already informed examinee of that ability that you can use a cheat sheet. So we try not to cause any difference between the people writing online and the people writing in person. So it can be printed or it can be handwritten. It cannot be electronic. So it's a piece of paper. It's a physical piece of paper with printing on 1 or 2 sides, as large or as small as you want. Okay. So that is all that I had to say. So I'll open the floor for questions about absolutely anything. So go ahead, fire away.
Yeah, I had a question.
Okay.
I don't really know how to start the short answer part. Where do you recommend starting?
So let me clarify your question. Do you mean where do you start on the exam, or how do you approach short answers specifically?
Approach short answers, because in the midterm it was easier because it was open book.
Yes, of course.
So then what's your opinion on it?
Well, I'm a big proponent of, like, if I was doing this, I would start at the top, which will be the multiple choice, and I would make sure that I didn't spend too much time on that. I think you should be able to get through the multiple choice in fairly short order. And if something didn't come to me right away, I would skip it. I would just make a big note. I think you happen to be writing in person, right? So no, sorry, online, right? You're writing online? Sorry, you're muted there.
In person?
You're writing in person? Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So I would just have a big circle right on my exam, a big circle, so that I could come back to it. Online, one of the questions that I often get, and we have done the midterm, is are all questions going to be available at once? Can I go backwards? I always put all questions out. So you can, if you are one of the people that's writing online, you can go back and forth in any order you want. So my approach, and it doesn't make it right, this is just how I would do it. I would get through those multiple choice as quickly as possible, carefully reading each question and response. And I think I could probably get that done in an hour. And then I would have 2 hours to both address those 10-mark questions and to go back through. So the same approach once I got to the short answer questions. If I didn't have an answer, I would skip it. I would go to the ones that I had a good idea of, and then circle back. Let my mind percolate on the questions that didn't come to me instantly. The answers didn't come to me instantly. So don't over. The reason I'm saying I'm expecting 5 valid points is I don't want you to spend the time to write 20 points to get 10 marks. I don't want you to waste that kind of time. So you should be putting no more than 10 minutes to those 10-mark questions. Does that help you in any way?
Kind of, but I was thinking like what to like in your PowerPoint, what to see that the short answer questions, so then we can put it on our cheat sheet. Like that way, I was going to say that.
So what I've often said is that one of the great ways to study, especially for the short answers, is at the beginning of each chapter, there are learning outcomes or goals, or I forget how the specific text talks about them, but it's usually 4 or 5 points, and I use them in my lectures as well. 4 or 5 points about, sorry, not in my lectures, but in the course content. So if I go to chapter 6 in course content, I have 3 learning outcomes. I would make sure that I was comfortable with those, because those make really good questions for the short answer stuff. So that's how I would direct my studying. And if you need to make notes on them, then use some of your paper to do that. Mostly, the most common use of cheat sheets is for formulas, and we don't have any real formulas. So go ahead and try and make sure that you cover most of those learning outcomes, particularly for chapters 6 through 10. I don't think you'll see a lot of questions in the short answer section that are going to pertain to the first half of the course.
Okay, that's the answer I wanted. Thank you.
Okay, good. Anyone else have any questions? Do we require a laptop if we are attending? No. In person? No. You'll be required to, I guess this is for many people their first time writing at Trent. What normally happens, if you're writing in Peterborough, first of all, Jordan will be invigilating, as will Professor Hurley. They will be the invigilators. If you write in Durham, it will be me. And I think there's only 10 people that are signed up for Durham, so there's not that many of us. What will happen is you'll come in, you'll take a seat, and then you will take all of your devices. You'll hopefully turn off your phone so it doesn't ring in the middle of the exam. That's really annoying for everyone and embarrassing for you. And you'll put your knapsack or your bag or your pile of books or whatever, computer, all that at the front of the class. So what happens there is you pile it at the front of the class. And I think I talked about this previously, but in a 3-hour exam, first of all, you can't leave for the first hour. And if you're more than an hour late, you'll be denied entry. So now don't get in a panic. If we have adverse weather conditions, there's a real good chance that the exam will be canceled. So keep an eye out for that before you leave your house. They will have that all over the Trent website. If you just go to Trent, it'll announce that very quickly for you. So you can't leave until at least an hour has gone by. So once you do leave, you go up to the front, grab your pile of whatever you've brought, and then you leave. If you get down to the last 10 minutes, I believe it is, I'll have to refresh on this myself. The last 10 minutes, you just sit through. So if you finish at 2 hours and 51 minutes into the exam, there's 9 minutes left in the exam, you just quietly sit there so that you don't disturb the people that are in final panic mode trying to put as much stuff down on paper as they can. And at the 3-hour mark, you'll be asked to put your pencils down, and you can hand in your exam. So you'll hand in your exam, and you will hand in your Scantron, because you'll be filling out a Scantron with your answers for the multiple choice. You'll hand those in to the invigilator at the front, whether that's Jordan, Dr. Hurley, or myself, depending on where you are. If you're online, obviously you're answering everything online. You don't get to keep the exam booklet. Please don't do that. I always advise people to write their name. There's a way to fill out, like you use the Scantron to fill out your name and the course number and everything. I still highly recommend that you write your name on as many pieces of paper as you can. So the Scantron, I would also write my name on the front page of my exam book, and maybe put my initials on the other pages as I went through, just in case. Exam books can get torn or whatever. And if we can't attribute it to someone, then those are marks that you're not going to get, obviously. So bring a pencil, bring in an eraser, because you are using the Scantrons. If you prefer to write in a pen, please do. Feel free to, or you can use pencil to write your short answers, whatever you wish to do. Take enough time that your printing or writing is legible, so that I can mark it, so that someone can mark it. So if you scribble down stuff that we can't read, again, it's hard to attribute marks if we can't see what it is you're saying. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Don't get me wrong. And there's no one cares about whether you spell things right or not, as long as the idea is there. No one's going to penalize you on punctuation. You don't need references for the information that you're providing. There's no expectation of that either. Okay, so that's how an exam looks. I think, again, you do your own research and check. I believe our exam's in the gym in Peterborough, and it is in room 107, I believe, in Durham, for those of you not writing online. But do check that. There is a place in your My Trent that will show you where your when and where your exams are.
I had a question. For the midterm, some of the questions were new. So will that be the same thing in the final?
So when you say new, you mean that you had never seen them before?
No, yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so yes, that will be exactly the same thing. On the other hand, it depends on whether you want to look at the cup half full or half empty, right? The questions are from the same pool. The multiple choice questions are from the same pool as the quizzes. So you will have seen some of them, and it's luck of the draw as to how many. Those pools are quite enormous. So there's going to be tons that you've never seen, but there certainly will be some that you have seen.
One more thing, sorry.
Yep.
So in the midterm, you had a sample, those 50 questions.
Yep.
So are you going to provide any for the final?
Sure, I can do that. Yep, absolutely.
50 again, right?
Yeah, I'll do 50. Yep. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And what I'll do is I will only choose questions from chapters 6 through 10. So you're going to have a small percentage of questions that'll be from 1 to 5, but I will just give you the questions from 6 to 10, 50 of them as a random sample.
All right, cool, thanks.
And I'll get that set up in the next day or two. And I doubt that many people, my recommendation, my strong recommendation is to do your studying first and use that as a final tune-up, as opposed to, doing that first, like doing that tomorrow or the next day and then studying. I would do it in the opposite way for sure. Kind of simulate the exam as much as you can. So I will get that up for you guys in the next couple of days. It won't take me long to do that.
And this is the last office hour? Sorry.
Yes.
I just.
Yep. This is the last office hours. No, that's fine. I'm sure people appreciate you asking the questions. This is the last office hours. We won't do this again next week. I did send out an announcement last week saying to attend this if you wanted to, or to watch the recording, which I of course will post. And I warned people not to ask me questions that I cover in this. Clarification, sure, absolutely. So fire off emails and I will certainly try and respond to them in a very timely manner. But my expectation, you guys that are here have already done it. My expectation is that everyone reviews this before they start asking me questions that I've covered explicitly in this. So. Any other questions, folks?
No, that's it. Thank you so much for the semester.
Well, thank you as well. Yeah, I think it was a good semester. This was a learning experience for me in that many of the class is in their first term of their first year, and I've never taught first term, first year ever before. I've always taught second term, first year, and usually the students have gone through a term and seen how things work. So sometimes I make assumptions about things that you're not experienced in. So I'm looking forward, as I've said, to marking the term papers. I just haven't had the time to do so yet. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. All right, if you don't have any other questions, feel free to sign off and get on with your evening. And you know where to find me by email. Just a reminder, when you send email, send it from your Trent account. I would hate you to have a question that you send from your Hotmail or your Gmail or whatever, and it gets stuck in my junk and I don't see it until, just before the exam or after the exam or whatever. So always use your Trent email. I only am teaching one Trent course this time, but it's a good habit to get into, to always put the subject in, like the subject that we're studying, in the subject line of the email. For instance, next term, I'm going to teach 3 different courses, and people ask me questions, and my response is always, what course are you talking about? So getting that habit, but I mean, it doesn't matter that much for this term, but in general, that's a really good habit to get into when asking questions of profs, knowing that they're going to be teaching more than one course typically. So, but yeah, go ahead, have a good evening. And anyone that wants to ask a question, stick around. I will hang out for another few minutes or until everyone leaves. And you're welcome, of course, to send questions by the chat function if you'd prefer to do that. Thank you. Thank you very much.